Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. We want to let you know that we have once again been honored with a nomination for the Hockey Podcast of the Year via the Sports Podcasting Awards. And all you need to do to help us is go to ourkidsplayhockey.com and click on the Vote Now button. It asks you a couple questions. You're in and you're out, and you have voted for us for Hockey Podcast of the Year. I want to thank you all for being a wonderful, wonderful audience and helping us get to this stature of hockey podcasting, because we've done it as a family, as the hockey friends and families around the world. Thanks so much and enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Hey, what's up, everybody? We got a really interesting episode of Our Kids Play Hockey for you today. We interviewed Franny Drummond, who paints a lot of the goalie masks for the Philadelphia Flyers, but also some pretty notable goalies around the league. And we dive into his story, but more importantly, we talk a lot in this episode about how he pursued the game after playing, kind of what motivates him to do it, and a lot of great creative and fun ideas throughout this entire episode. So make sure you listen to that, and just remember that the episode is being powered by Hockey Wraparound. You can check them out at hockeywraparound.com, OKPH, for 20% off your order. Check them out. They make the world's leading stick blade protector. So if you have an expensive hockey stick or your kids are destroying their sticks, check them out for that. It's #1 rated. They also have the dry stick, which is really changing how equipment is dried in hockey. When you have small spaces, you're on the road a lot. Again, check them out at hockeywraparound.com and OKPH for 20% off your order. With that said, enjoy this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey with Franny Drummond. It was a good one, and have a great day. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world. Welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined as always by Christy Casciano-Burns and Mike Benelli. And let's be honest, hockey has a lot of unique aspects to it that we all love. But one of the most special and greatest traditions in the game is the creative customization of the goalie mask. And our guest today, Franny Drummond, is a sports illustrator that has brought his childhood dream of creating customized gear for athletes to fruition through his company, Paint Zoo. And he's a graduate of the International Fine Arts College from Miami and has created custom pieces for athletes of several sports. But when it comes to hockey, listen to these names. His work can be seen on NHL goaltenders such as Carter Hart, Brian Elliott, Steve Mason, Jimmy Howard, Tuukka Rask, Ilya Bryzgalov, Ray Emery, Michael Leighton, and Devin Dubnyk, among several other names that we'll get to today. This should be a fun one. Franny, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all ours. We're always looking to do fun episodes.
It's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. I've been looking forward to this once they told me about it.
Yeah, well, look, our producer, Caitlin, who's a friend of yours, has been telling me for months, we have got to get him on the show. It's going to be a great episode. And we trust, and Caitlin, we trust. All right. Now, she has to watch this back when she edits it. So she's going to hear me say that. But she knows I mean. But Caitlin, we appreciate everything you do. Listening audience, we appreciate everything Caitlin does. That's our shout out for her today. So, Franny, let me start off with the first question. When did you know that sports illustration was something that you wanted to explore as a career? And I'm asking this question because on this show, we talk a lot about how we love the game. We love to play the game and coach the game, but there's so many other ways to be involved in hockey aside from just being on the ice. So you said this was a childhood dream of yours. Tell us and walk us through that journey.
Well, to start, I was a hockey player. Believe it or not, I was a goalie. So that's where my kind of dream came from. I started playing ice hockey, trying to play ice hockey at 4. Hated it. Then started playing a little bit as I got older on the pond a little bit. And out here outside, I live outside Northeast Philadelphia, and back then the ponds used to freeze a lot. Now, not so much.
Right.
But
right.
I grew up just kind of skating on the pond, and I've always been into art. My grandfather drew, and he used to draw a lot of like cartoon characters and things like that. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him, but I always heard about it. But I wanted to always try to take. I always collected like hockey cards and things like that. Hockey was my passion, and I guess where I kind of mix the two is watching the goaltending masks. Believe it or not, I wasn't a big Rangers fan. Obviously, being a Flyers fan. Yeah.
What could have caused that growing up in Northeast Philly?
I know. I loved Mike Richter and his mask, and I love Andy Moog and Mike Vernon's, all these guys that wore these crazy masks, and I started to draw them, as like an illustrator, because I've always wanted to be a sports illustrator. So I really was concentrating on their mask, but actually the full body. Like I just wanted, as a goalie, I love the pads, and I just loved hockey. And so I just started drawing players. And from that point, as I got older, I kept with it. I remember, this is kind of funny. We were on doing Briskalov's, you talk about a story, and the love for it, and the two combining. I, I was in junior high school, and I always loved drawing illustrated. I wanted to be an illustrated sports illustrator, drawing, stuff and have it in magazines or whatever. And I would draw all the time. And my art teacher in junior high school said that I was wasting my time. And she wouldn't let me pass to go to take art major at the high school. And it was kind of funny because we did Briz's Winter Classic mask. I don't know if you guys remember that. It had a bunch of iconic Philadelphia iconic players, right, like Dr. J, and Bobby Clark was my all-time favorite hockey player. Mike Schmidt. Well, that was my illustration on one hockey mask. And they had me on Comcast Sportsnet, and my mom ended up saying, "Are you going to mention your teacher's name?" And I go, "You know what? No, I won't. I won't." But they end up passing me through. But she told me I was wasting my time illustrating sports players.
Yeah.
Go figure.
I always love when that happens. I always see that as a challenge rather than an obstacle.
And that's what I used it as. I was always like, you know what? I always tell kids when I teach, always draw what you love, right? So whether you're going to make it a career or not, just draw what you love, and you never know, because it came true for me. So,
one of the things I got to bring up right now, Franny, just for our listening audience, is for parents, coaches, and if any kids are listening, my attitude has always been, if you have a passion for something, or you see that your child has a passion for something, you don't necessarily have to agree with what that passion is, but you have to support the right to have a passion. And I always say, cultivate that, because you're going to teach your kid that they can accomplish wonders. And your story reminds me of Michael Jordan. And I'm comparing you to Michael Jordan, who didn't make his high school basketball team. He was told he wasn't good enough, and he did it anyway. And look, let's be honest. It's not an unfair comparison. Your work has been seen through now several generations of Flyers players and other goalies around the league. So I just think it's really important for people listening. Look, I was told that too. I remember, nobody ever makes the NHL. Nobody ever makes pro hockey. And I remember that my question back to that was, but why? Why can't I? Right now, don't get me wrong. I didn't go play in the NHL. But I did play pretty deep when people told me I couldn't. And I always think that's an important lesson for people, is if your kid has a passion for something, cultivate the ability to have the passion. You never know what it's going to go to. And by the way, I'm looking at the 2012 Winter Classic, that January 2nd game. I was at that game. I'm looking at a picture of my brother and I right now at that game. That was a fun day. But Franny, I alluded to it. Again, your work has been seen now on Flyers goaltenders for over 10 years, it sounds like, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that like to turn on? It's not Comcast Sportsnet anymore. What is it now? It's changing again.
Yeah,
right?
It changed again. I think
it's NBC Sports, not something else. Yeah, but you turn on the TV. Carter Hart is poised to be one of the greatest goaltenders in the game. Yeah, I said it. So what is it like to turn on the TV and see these guys wearing your masks?
Surreal. Like I said, my son, I have two daughters, older daughters. They're 17 and 19, and obviously they don't care about hockey. So I would have these hockey masks, and I'm like, hey, this is like really cool. Like, this is Briskalov's Winter Classic. You're gonna see it on TV, and excuse me, they don't really care. But during the 2010, I think it was 2010 Stanley Cup run, my son was being born, and we end up naming him Leighton because my wife at that, she loved the last name as a first, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. She goes, if they make it to the Stanley Cup, and you got to take that bet all day long,
right?
And he's a boy. His name's Leighton.
That's
And
awesome.
believe it or not, I couldn't believe that they even made it to the Stanley Cup.
Right.
But guess what his name is? He's 11 now, almost. So, and we've had painted Leighton's mask for, ever since he was in the league. So it's pretty cool. But as far as like the guys like Carter Hart and those guys, he's so young. I remember him making a phone call to me when we first end up picking him up to paint. And he said, I had this really cool idea of doing like, his last name's Hart. So I had these cards, like a magician flying at his mask, stuck onto the mask with like the King of Hearts and like the Ace of Hearts and all this stuff. And he said to me, he said, Franny, listen, that's a really cool idea. Me and my dad love that idea, but Lundqvist is the king. And I go, wow. Like the respect that he has for the game, his knowledge and stuff, being so young, he wants to be that guy. And in Philadelphia, it's a hard, we know it's hard. And just the paint for him is incredible. But he said to me, is like, is it weird that I would want like maybe like Carnage or Spider-Man on my mask? And I'm like, no. I said, because you have to remember, goalies are different. Whatever, when they put their mask on and whatever they want, they're going to turn into that person or whatever, or they'll feel that, like some people do, like, personal stuff or kids stuff or whatever they want to do. It's just a personal thing for goaltenders. So for me, it's just a huge honor that I get to paint, not only for a professional, but I do the same thing for the young kids. When I paint for them, it doesn't matter the client, you just try to put as much passion into it, because I was a goaltender, and given away my age, I wasn't allowed to paint my mask because they weren't legal yet. So I had to wear the old Dominic Hasek style, so, but
there's nothing wrong with that
cool.
either.
What are the kids asking for these days? What's really popular with the kids?
Well, believe it or not, I always ask the kids who's their favorite goalie. Carey Price is obviously a big one, Carey Price. Even Carter Hart's favorite goalie is Carey Price. But it varies. It's really weird because there's so much detail in masks now compared to what they used to be when like Patrick Waugh and those guys were in net. But like we just did one with he was 9 years old, and the mask was so tiny, and he wanted a realistic shark like Devin Dubnik's, but he wanted it to be overpowered by the Kraken. So I had to do an octopus tentacles over top of a realistic shark. So that was pretty on a tiny helmet. So it's pretty cool what they come up with. Their imaginations. That's why I love doing young goalies, because it brings me back to when I was a goalie, so, but yeah, it's exciting. I love what I do every day.
One of the things that's amazing about the goalie mask in hockey, we talked about is how unique it is, but kind of the universal acceptance from everybody, including coaches. In fact, Mike, it's kind of a question for you, but I'm not going to say I haven't. I've never picked a goalie or anything like that based on his mask, but I had some goalies in my day. I'm like, that mask is pretty awesome. I could see that being on the ice. Mike, do you have any favorite masks from your time, or do you have any kids that you've coached that you thought their masks were good, maybe outside just the black or the white standard one?
Yeah, no, that was going to be my question to Franny. I mean, so Franny, I come from a family of professional sports illustrators myself. Mm-hmm. And I know, and my father would do these unbelievable works of art for the Islanders and the Rangers and the NHL programs. And he would always be asked to do goalie masks, and he'd never touch it. He's like, It's impossible. He goes, there's no way. He goes, just the intricacy. So, I mean, my question, and again, and I think I was more old school, and I used to like the, just the logo or, a nice white mask with the team crest on it, which is always fine for me. But now that the artwork is so fine and you can really create anything you want, on these masks. I mean, what is the process, like your storyboard process for a goaltender? Maybe not for the kids, because you're saying they have a crazy Well, they have
Oh,
great
yeah.
imaginations, right? But like but you have to set limitations on these masks, right? I mean, the square footage. So what's the storyboard process that you go through with a goalie? And then how long does that process take? Because I know, like, for me, if I ask my brother, who's an artist up in Nantucket, and he does, and I have a fish print I want, like, I go, can you just paint that fish and get it to me? No, I need to be in the, I gotta feel it, and I gotta, feel the fish, and I gotta see it, and I gotta almost sit outside. And what is that process for you when you're sitting with a goaltender and going through the process of building that mask?
Yeah, that's the exciting part, right? So, like, that goaltender most of the time knows what he wants. Sometimes you have to there's so much you can do now, right? So, like, it was easier back then when you could just put the crest and the logo on there and maybe some lines. But as far as the prep's always the key, So we work with Bauer Direct too, like as a certified painter for those guys. But, as far as prep work, it's like taking a hockey puck and getting a shot at your car. Like most paint companies, like we're sponsored by BASF, they're not going to guarantee a hockey puck getting shot at your face. So what you have to do is be able to use really, really good material, know what you're doing as far as the process. But I think the hardest part in the creative part of it is getting everything to fit on there, right? So, like, there's holes and straps, and like I usually take like Carter Hart's, for instance, right? So he likes Venom. So we'll take Venom and we'll print them out on just like a piece of paper, like a copier, and I actually just sit them on there and see if they'll work. I actually try to figure out if the hole is going to cut off like a face or a tooth, or because there's so many holes on those. Right. That's probably the hardest part. Once I get it drawn on there, most people, like you said, your friend and like your dad, for instance, you said, right? Like they don't, illustration is on a flat piece of paper, so when you're drawing like a goalie, I used to love that. I could draw all day long, but then when you have to take it to shapes and make like, that face to make it look like it's not distorted. Like Carter Hart's one that he's wearing right now with the AC/DC. I think I changed that 3 times because I couldn't get Angus Young's face to sit correctly where it wouldn't look weird on a camera, that he looked like his face was stretched 15 feet, So there's a lot of things that you have to go through a process as an artist and illustrate. But I get where you said your friend, like, has to go out and sit by the lake and kind of feel the fish. Sometimes that's what I have to do too. I like to, my fiance, she's funny because I always work on like a mask, and then I'll get done and she's like, hey, dinner's done. And I take the mask in there and I put it on the table and I'm eating and I watch the mask. And she says, do we have to like do this? Like, and I'm going, it's a process. I do it for every mask. Like,
yeah, it's gotta speak to me, right? I mean, I'm looking for it to come to me. I know, I can appreciate that. And I think, hearing you speak about it too, I think you came from that world. Like you come from a world of being a goaltender. So understanding, you're in the mask. And I think that's the coolest thing about the way your paintings are. I mean, these works of art are that because you're thinking like how you're thinking, like, oh my God, if he turns and the camera looks at his back, like what are they going to see? And what's that angle going to be? And, a guy like Lundqvist, like a guy like, he likes heading pucks, right? Yep. Like, well, do I want to paint a lot of stuff in here where he's,
that you have to fix it.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So, I mean, I can really appreciate that thought process of going, how you have to, kind of immerse yourself. And I guess, so how long does it take you to make one of those masks? I mean, say you got the artwork down and you're good to go. I mean, it sounds like once you have the vision and you're motivated.
Yeah, most of the time, like they need it. So there's go time. I mean, I've had to paint I had to paint Elliott's mask for that outdoor game against the Penguins in a day and a half. Because we actually took one mask that he wasn't wearing a lot and we had to repaint it because Carter Hart ended up getting hurt and Elliott was going and he didn't want to wear just a plain normal mask. So he wanted to wear like a special edition mask. So sometimes the process really, really is fast. Sometimes like, say for instance, Mason, right? With all the zombie players. Me and Mace all used to laugh because when we first did that mask, the NHL Network covered it, and it got so popular with, you know, changing their players into zombies. Like The Walking Dead was pretty popular at that time. That every single teammate wanted to be on the mask. So we had to really limit certain players and how many people we could actually, I think at one point I had 8 players on one mask.
Wow. And
you can imagine how small and detailed those masks were. But that took about 2 weeks to paint.
Wow.
So, yeah. So the process sometimes is really, really fast, and sometimes it's really, really long. Depending on when they need it. Like a lot of times, you know, you're in hockey, so you have to get equipment to these guys right away, you know, so you have to skip over
process, you know. I'm thinking about, you look at these masks drenched in these vibrant colors now. It's a combination of art and history and even high fashion.
It is.
They seem to be getting more complex now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed. Like you were saying earlier, like the older masks were like my favorite, you know, when I grew up, the Mike Richter's mask, how simple was the Statue of Liberty on top, and they're just the Rangers down the center, or on the sides. Now they're art pieces. They're actually collectibles now. Goaltenders are giving them to fans, and you know, they're collecting them. I know Mason has a lot of his zombie masks, so I would say they're history now. You know, they were history before, but like now, because they're actually art pieces, and they're not just logos or whatever. Like you said, they're fashion pieces now. Like they literally goalies will send me in the summertime what their pads and equipment look like, so we can make sure the design goes with
it. All matches up. Yeah,
that's you know, and whenever you go to Hockey Hall of Fame and you look at the collection of historic goalie masks, they are treated like artifacts.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, they are. And I guess that's really the exciting part about my job, right? So we want to try to get a mask that we paint and make it historical, right? So, you know, like Bobby Clark's always been like my favorite hockey player since I was little. I would actually when I was little, I'd run around. I wanted to knock my own teeth out just so I could look like Bobby Clark. So, you know, and I was a goalie. So being a fan of him, to put him on the mask was like a huge thing. And then to go down there and show him, it was amazing, because he says, well, why did you put me on the mask? That's what he said to me. And I go, you're Bobby Clark. Like, you're Bobby Clark.
That soft voice he has. Well, why did you put me on the mask? I could see, hear him doing that in my head.
And but you think about it, that's what made him a great captain.
Right.
You know, he always thought of everyone first, you know? So, to me, it's exciting. You know, the process is long. Sometimes the process is short, sometimes depending on what we have to do. And when they need it. That's right. That's a big thing.
You know, I'll say this too, that it is, I said this at the Open, it is such a unique part of hockey. I mean, there's a lot of unique things in hockey, but really no other sport, major sport, I should say, has really embraced this team sport, right? Like, you know, I've seen some MLB catchers do little things, but it's something that's really hockey specific. So before I ask this next question, I'm gonna tee up Mike and Christy real quick, because this question just came to my mind. But Mike and Christy, I need you to start thinking about, what would your mask look like? Because I'm definitely going to put that on the table towards the end of this episode. If you had to have I already know what mine would be. It's kind of obvious for anybody that knows me. We'll talk about it. But I'm going to let them think for a few minutes, because the next question is one I have to ask, which is, you know, what is the favorite one you've ever created? I know that's probably unfair to ask, because you've done a lot of great ones. You just told us about the Bobby Clark one, but is there one that sits above the rest on a pedestal? You're like, that is my greatest piece of work. Or is it ongoing, you know? And feel free to say a few. I don't want to pin you in, but if you have one, just do one. By the way,
Yeah.
before you answer
Well,
that, I want to mention too, the Flyers did beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in that outdoor hockey game. I was at that game too, because I'm looking at that
Me
picture
too.
now. Yeah. And Elliot was in net. So I appreciate you and helping in that victory any way possible. But go ahead. Your favorite mask of all time.
Favorite mask of all time. That is a tough question, because you get you get attached to a lot, and I think in general, like, you get attached to the goaltender too. So the person that you're working with.
Sure. That's a good point.
Like Brian Boucher was one of my all-time favorite people. I remember doing Ray Emery's mask, which unfortunately, he passed away, but he was one of my first masks that we were able to like break in. And he didn't end up playing the Winter Classic, but we did a really cool mask for him with like a lot of like hockey legends like Bernie Perrant and that. And I know he maybe wore it in the season maybe one or two times, but of course they all both got hurt. Bush got hurt and Emery got hurt, and that's where we got Leighton at. But Bush was actually one of my favorite clients as far as like masks to do for. We brought his retro mask back when he first came to Philly, with the jet fighter in it. And I would say that would be one of my all-time favorite ones that I got to do, because not only to do it, but the history of it, and that's the one where he actually, I think we went into like a shootout. I remember he stopped the puck.
Right. Yep.
And we were able to get into the playoffs. That mask right there was one of my all-time favorite ones.
So I'll set the stage real quick for what everybody's talking about. It was 2010. The Flyers and the Rangers were pretty much tied at the end of the season, and they had back-to-back home and home games to finish the season. And it was in New York first, and I think the Flyers won that game, and then they had to win the next game. And it's a very painful memory for Rangers fans. So I'm Ranger fans, because I know we have a lot of you. I'm not trying to jab it in, but yeah, the Flyers ended. That was the first time ever in the NHL that a playoff position was decided on the shootout.
Yep.
And it was Lundqvist versus Boucher. But yeah, that was an interesting year for the Flyers. We won't talk about what happened in the final against the Chicago Blackhawks, but
yeah, I'd rather not.
yeah, I don't want to do that. I had to show talking about Caitlin. I had to show her that last night because she wasn't aware of it. But that's a great answer. And what I love about it, Franny, is that it's not the most intricate one, right? It's not the brightest one. It's actually quite simple. And I think the key to what you said, for anybody that missed it, was it's the person you were working with really that had a lot to do with that. So there's more than just putting paint on a mask.
It really is. Like the young thoughts with Carter Hart. Briz was always different. We all know Briz.
Yeah.
So
well, you have to be mad.
The Star Wars one was a little. That's a story I could always tell you. That Star Wars one was a little out there. But being in a relationship I have with Carter now, it's fun. Yeah. We get to create we have 2 new ones coming out really soon. Everyone thinks that the AC/DC one is his one he's wearing, which he is, but we got 2 coming out. So
I love it.
Just to let people know that we got some really cool ones coming out.
So I'm going to keep an eye out for those being in Phil. I'm in Southwest Philadelphia, so I understand.
Okay, cool.
We have a few more questions, but the moment has come. Who wants to go first, Christy or Mike? Christy's ready to go. What's going on in your goalie helmet, Christy?
All right. Well, my favorite place on the planet, my sister illustrated this, is Lake Placid. So mine would be an homage to Lake Placid, maybe a Miracle on Ice mask.
I like that.
I would love that.
Wow.
Fantastic moment in hockey history, captured on a helmet, to always be inspired by the Miracle on Ice.
Yep, I love it. I painted Jim Craig a million times.
That's great. I'll tell you what would be cool, Christy, about that is, what I like about that one is if I'm a player and I'm on the ice and I look to you and see that, it's like an instant reminder of, what we're looking at.
Bam.
So true.
Miracles can happen.
Yes, that's so true.
All right, Mr. Benelli, you're up. This better be good, Mike. This better be good.
We should get a drum roll.
No, I know. I wouldn't have. I probably have to have some kind of I'm more I'd probably stick away from hockey and get some nice outdoor scenes, big fly fishing scene out there and a big salmon on. But I think I just want to know when are you going to break through to do player helmets? And when's that? Have you been asked to do any kind of like a regular Bauer player helmet for any kind of special events?
Yeah, we
And why the goalies get all the nice stuff?
Yeah, that's so true. That's a really good question.
They don't get traded as much. That's
yeah,
right.
That's a good point.
Yeah, especially for special occasions. Let's say, if you're saluting the military,
Right.
they could do, a tribute to our soldiers.
Yep.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would. I've never done any. I know the plastic that they use on a lot of those are a lot harder to paint.
Right.
So that's a big reason why that a lot of people maybe don't paint them and they actually put the stickers on them, because that's what they're doing now. They're using, even for the outdoor game you said against the Flyers and the Penguins.
Yeah,
they did like the big stickers on there.
Yeah, decals, yeah.
I've painted them before, just more as presents and trophies and people, but never for like a hockey team. We do, I don't know if you guys know this, but we do a lot of football. We're working on right now, as we speak, 180 helmets for the Navy Academy.
Wow. That's
for
awesome.
the Army Navy game.
That's awesome. Is it anything special or just their normal helmets kind of thing?
Oh no, it's special.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know we have
doing
to wait.
it for the last 3 years now, and my dad, my grandmom, and grandfather were all Marines. So to me, that game is just a special game. And to be part of it, to paint the helmets. And I'm kind of bringing that up because those are players. They get to wear the fancy helmets. But the hockey players, they get kind of boned on that, don't they? They kind of get screwed on that part of it. They don't get to any fan. They might just get like a Flyers logo or a Rangers logo or whatever, and that's it. Number.
No, it's not fair. There's no creativity for
there
player.
isn't. But imagine that though. It would probably be pretty chaotic because you would have to do each individual helmet, and then it would look like a whole massive chaos out there, probably.
Yeah. No, I think it is special. What's your? I want to hear what your helmet looks like. You got to have a couple of goalie helmets of your own. or the shoemaker's kids don't get anything. You just
that is true. Yeah,
I haven't done a helmet for myself.
I'm always doing. I have a couple sample ones around. I like a lot of the old flat black. I'm an old. I love hot rods and stuff like that. So mine's got flat black and pinstriping and old school stuff on there. Metal flake, that kind of stuff. But I don't know what I would do on mine, honestly. It's so bad.
I had a kid that's actually, now that we're doing this interview here, I have a goalie that played for me 2 years ago that was a big fan of yours, only because I know, because now you're naming all these helmets that you did. And I think I posted it to Kevin Weeks on Twitter or something. I'm going to find it. But he came to like a practice one day. I'm looking at his helmet, like, what the hell is this? He did all the artwork on his helmet with Sharpies, because he can't paint. He doesn't have a spray paint, that intricate, spray paint. Yep. And he did the whole thing was with different color Sharpie markers. And it was unbelievable. It was so really cool. Great. And he was trying to copy, now that I know what he was copying, your artwork and your inspiration. But I think that's the ability for these goalies to kind of express themselves or who they are is so unique, because they get this canvas to draw on, which a lot of us don't have.
Yeah, cool. Exactly. And hopefully, like you say, my job as an artist and a painter is to inspire these kids. We need the next generation to come up and want to either be goalies or play hockey or even paint masks, right? Hopefully, they are inspired. We get a lot of kids. Quick story, Carter Hart told me that he was in a comic book store, and he's a big comic guy, and he was in there, and the guy was kind of looking at him, and they all have their masks on, right? And he said, hey, do you need a hand? And Carter's like, oh no, I'm just looking at this. He goes, I know who you are. And he goes, really? He says, oh no, you're the reason why I watch hockey now. Because
Cool.
he has a collection of comics
Right.
on his hockey mask. And this kid or this guy in this comic store has never watched hockey before until Carter started wearing Venom and Carnage and all these cool hockey masks, right? And that is why they watch hockey now. And he signed and autographed a signature for him on a comic, and it was pretty cool. He's like, man, it's cool to inspire people, right?
Great.
You know, Franny, I'll tell you, and Mike and Christy know this. I do another show called Geeks Who Like Sports that's all about that class of people that just love geekdom and love sports, and how this is the golden age of that time period. And Carter Hart is actually leading us that way. And you know, when it comes to my mask, I resonated a lot with what you said earlier about when the goalie puts that mask on, it like transforms them, right? And I've always loved that idea. So mine. And again, anyone who knows me is going to be able to guess this, but I love bad guys in movies, right? Probably because I'm not one. I would have every awesome Sith Lord from Star Wars on my mask. And you can judge me, people, all you want. I'm going on the ice as a Sith Lord because when the puck comes to me, I'm going to be deadly against it. I'm going to show no remorse. I just kind of love the ideas. I wrestled with, like, do I want another mask for like home games where it's all Jedi? Jedi are all wimps. They complain a lot. I just want Sith Lords on my mask.
Going to the dark side, huh?
Always on the ice. Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I think one of the greatest compliments I ever got when I was a player, Christy, was I got off the ice and I can't remember who it was, but someone came up to me. They go, your face is like completely different when you're out there. You look like a different person. I'm like, what does it look like? Like you look mad. So that was a good compliment for me. So maybe
That's awesome.
You got to go to the dark side if you're on the ice. That's how you win. All right. The Jedi lost. Remember that. They didn't win anything. The Sith actually win.
I'm still a Jedi fan.
You can be a Jedi fan. Look, I'm a Jedi on the streets, a Sith. Never mind. I'm not going to go there with that one. But, Freddie, let me ask you this question. You kind of alluded to this. Yeah. So goalie helmets are personal, right? So I want to kind of shift this to, because we have a great listening audience. Guarantee you goalie parents are listening to this. And they need to be asked the answer to this question. What should a goalie be asking before they take the plunge into really diving into this? Because look, let's be honest, it's not the most inexpensive thing in the world. All right. And there is a rite of passage, and every hockey parent listening to this, and every musician's parent is, okay, I'm not buying 12 of these during the season.
Correct.
You get one, and it's going to last for a while. So what questions should they be asking before they take that plunge?
That is a good question. So what we do is it's just a process. Just basically figure out kind of, I always give kids homework, right? What are you into? What do you like?
Right.
Like you said, you know, when you get on the ice, who do you become?
I love
right.
that.
You could become, Iron Man, or you could become, whoever you want to be. That's the greatest gift about the Flyers or the hockey goaltender, right? So if you think about it, like me, I never had the chance to paint my mask. So I'm living through these kids.
Right.
Like, I'll do whatever they want. I'll do Sith Lords. I'll do whatever you want because I get to live through them, right? So I get to create what they want. And I guess the biggest question answer I would have for that would be, just really take notes, jot down a bunch of things like before you call, a painter or whoever is going to paint your mask, and get ideas. Like you say, Sith Lords or Miracle on Ice. What kind of ideas during the Miracle on Ice would you want? Do you like Jim Craig? Do you like when he's carrying the flag around his back? The Sith Lords, which Sith Lords do you want on there? Like, there's only so much room, and I know, like, with that would be figure out, I don't know, just ideas. It's always about ideas, right? Like, because kids come in and they're like, well, I really like, I had one kid come in last week and he really liked, what did he want? I think it was like Marvel stuff. And then he changed it to, a whole different DC thing. And I'm like, well, at that point, you can have the best of both worlds, right? So we can do DC on one side,
right.
and
Break all the rules. I love it.
Break all the rules. Yeah, you can have the mix, and we could do like a mohawk and split it down the side.
Yeah.
So the biggest answer I would have is just jot notes down before you call someone or talk to someone, is just really get ideas for what you think you might want. And even the goal or the painter will actually help you. Like me, I always come up with renderings for kids. So we go through different rendering process of like what you want, computerized, so that way it's easy to change, because I used to draw them all. And it was like hours of drawing, because they might not want Darth Vader in one and they want, Yoda in one. So to switch them out and draw it takes a lot of time. So now we use Photoshop and different things to kind of incorporate what they would want. It makes it easier for them to see it, because a lot of kids are visual, right? So they're always on their phones and doing TikToks and all kinds of stuff. So they're like, well, what's my mask going to look like? Well, we make a rendering up so you can actually see what it looks like before we paint it. And that took a while to do through my process of painting goalie masks, because I'm like, I already know what your mask is going to look like. Like the Miracle on Ice one, I already know what that looks like. I could paint that right now, because that's one of my all-time favorite movies. So just bring in ideas. And don't be afraid to like get creative. Like, some goalies come in and they're like, they see it on TV, I just want a mohawk and go. And because everybody thinks it's expensive. It's pricey for sure, but we always work within people's budget, because I was a goalie. So I know how much hockey costs. So, when they come to us, we always try to work within what they can afford. Right. And that's because we want them to feel the same way I would feel with a hockey mask being painted out there.
Right.
Yeah, but I also think it's great that what you're doing is you've used the words a couple of times, and Lee used it too, about transforming. Right. And it's almost as part of the mental process for a goaltender to feel like they're putting this armor on, this uniform on, like their identity lays within the mask. So sure. If you're investing money as I don't know if a 10-year-old should be investing this kind of money, but if you're a junior player or a college player or somebody that's going to be in an organization for a little longer than 3, 4, 5 months, then embrace that opportunity as part of the process of becoming a better athlete for your team. And I think, and I know, like even my own players, how they rally around their goaltenders, that becomes part of your identity too, because everybody in the locker room is talking about it. Like you said, all the players want to be on the mask. They want to be a part of the process. So I think it's a great way to look at it. If you're going to look at ROI and investing in your athlete, that, it's a mental piece of what they're doing in that particular position in the sport.
Yeah, agreed. And like you said, 5 months for a team and then you got to invest in another mask. Some parents do that. Some parents have a mask just for like travel. Some parents have a mask just for college, but some parents can't do that. Right. So what I do suggest is sometimes what's kind of cool is doing the split mask where you play for both teams, and you can do, the mohawk or something cool down the center and do, a little bit of each, depending on the color. Sometimes colors don't work with each other, but you can have one mask for both. And then that way you don't have to invest in 2 masks. So there's a lot of ways to get around it. And then there's a lot of ways to, just do it like in a monochromatic feel, like, say your team on both carries the same color. You can make that mask that same color, like black and gray, and you can wear it for both teams. Like there's a lot of ways to get around not buying 15 masks for 15 teams. Cause I know kids play travel and they play, they'll do club hockey, and then they have high school. And like you said, the investment as you get older is a little bit better because you're not changing sizes. You're not growing out of hockey masks. Yeah. So that was a big thing that I would point out too. That's important. Budget yourself to a paint job that you can afford when you're younger. And then if you have to get older, then you can really invest in like junior and you're going to keep the mask for a while. So
For
But
those
yeah,
of us who don't know, how much should we prepare to spend? Like, what's the price range? What's the minimum? And how high can you go?
oh yeah, well, it's endless, right? So I always try to like work within people's budget. I always try to stay within the 475 and then work up from there, because a lot of times like our base is like, within $500 range, and then you work from that, because there's so much that I have to do, from taking it apart and prep and paint. Just to get to that part is a lot of work, because we don't paint right on top of what they send us, because they send them in factories. Like Bauer will send 100 masks and they'll get painted white, but that white really doesn't hold up to what we're putting on there. So we'll have to sand it, reseal it, repaint it, and then go from there. And one thing we do, we always take care of our goalies. So if our goalies have get rocked in the chin or something happens, I want them to make sure that they let me know and we take care of it for them.
That's awesome.
I need my goalies to look good. Like, I don't want no chips and,
Yeah, because that's your reputation on their
that
helmet.
is, yeah.
I mean, don't you want the call of the guy who just wants the stitches on his helmet? Right? Oh, yeah, I just want stitches. Yeah, perfect. Let's do that.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm a big Cheevers fan.
What do you mean you want a mountain scene in the back?
I know, that's way too much. Yeah, that's a lot. What, you want this? Yeah, that's you start getting into hockey mask, and like I said, it's really hard to fit a lot of stuff on there with what goes on with the holes and the straps and cages and whatnot. So,
Franny, the question I love that you told the parents to ask is, who do you want to become when you put that mask on? Now, flipping the script a little bit here, because we talked about this at the beginning of the episode too. There's only so many goalies out there, but there's probably a lot of illustrators out there too. There's probably a lot of kids who like to draw. And we talked about this. One of the big things we talk about on this show is, aside from playing, there's a lot of different ways to get into the game, both professionally or as a hobby, that have nothing to do with playing. So what about the aspiring illustrators out there? What's your advice to them and the parents of the kid who can't stop drawing, right? Who's whatever teacher tells them that there's no future in this, right? What is your advice to them when they see your work and go, man, I want to do that? Yeah,
but I would just say what I always tell kids when they come up to me and go, well, how'd you get started and how'd you do this? I said I kept doing it. I didn't listen to anybody. Believe me, I've had, I went to art school in Miami, and I took commercial art, and I painted surfboards for a living. And surfers don't have money. So how was I going to do art and make a living at it, right? That's always the question. Art and living, they always have that saying, the starving artist. And I didn't want to be that. I wanted to provide for my family. And a lot of artists like the Van Goghs and guys like that, you got to cut off your ear before you get famous, right?
Right.
I mean, Andy Warhol, he was weird. That made him good. I don't know. I kids always ask me that. And for me, if I could inspire anyone, I would say, just keep doing it. Keep practicing. Don't listen to anybody. Do what you love to do. Whenever people ask me, I always say that is, what do you like to draw? Like my daughter, she loves to draw, but she wants to be a teacher. And that's awesome. And I said, she always loved cartoons. So she just draws for fun now, drawing cartoons and whatever, but she's expressing herself, right? So you always have to try to express yourself, whether it's, some guys like to play golf and play hockey. And if you're not an athlete or whatever, and you still like to be an illustrator, just draw. Draw what you love, because eventually that love will become something, right? Hopefully, like anything, you got to keep practicing. I like you said in the beginning, these hockey guys, they're all day long. There's how much percentage to be an NHL hockey player, right? So they kept going at it. They kept playing on the ponds. They kept playing at it. They kept doing it. I remember as a goaltender, I got accepted to Southern Maine to play. And I really, it was very cold and the art program wasn't that great there. So I ended up going to a small school in Miami, but I always said to myself, was I going to be a hockey player? or did I really want to do art? And that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do art. But now I'm living my dream, like you said. Like,
Right.
I'm doing art, but on hockey stuff.
Well, look, I'll say this too, like to the parents out there, the pursuit of a passion is really what's important when you think about
Yeah.
it. Again, so many times, and look, parents, I don't blame you for this. You see your kid doing something you don't think there's a future in. I'm a parent. I get it. Okay. I get the thought process of like, well, that's a waste of your time. But what you got to do is step back. And this is my opinion again. It's a parent show. So I got to say that. But I say, okay,
Yep.
like my son loves Legos and he's really good at it. Right. Do I think he has a future in Legos? Probably not. But
Right.
I still, and hey, I love that you're creative with the Legos, right? I love that you're creating things. And I want you to know, like, whatever that passion turns into, you can use the talent, you can use the love you have for building, and you can apply that to anything you want to apply it to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because
Yes, I went to school with a young man, a grammar school and high school. He was very funny kid. And he loved doing cartoon voices. And, we would go out and see him. He'd do nightclub acts in high school. We'd go watch him. And, he did the unknown comic routine. Hilarious. And the, teachers in school would say, there's really no future in what you're doing. You really need to settle down and focus on something more serious, a career.
Yep.
Well, he didn't listen to them, packed up, went to Hollywood. I think Tom Kenny has done okay as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants.
wow.
You went to school with him, Christy? You're just uncovering stuff here all the time.
Wow.
No, look, that's the point. Look,
There's a story for you.
I'll tell you guys this.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love SpongeBob.
Yeah, who doesn't? Look, I'll tell you guys this. I had this real privilege the other day to interview on Win, we do a lot of podcasts. Mike Smith, who is the greatest jockey of all time. Like if there's a Wayne Gretzky of jockeying with horses, it's him. And you know what he said, and this is so true of you, Franny. It also makes my Michael Jordan reference look even better. So I'm going to do it. But he said that the top performers, the top people he knows, they're just very curious. The question isn't like, okay, well, my dad or mom said I can't do it. It's like, but why? Right? Why can't I do it? Right? And when they say no, it goes, but I want to. Like that tiny bit of curiosity has made so many people successful, right? And we're not just talking professional. We're talking trailblazers. We're talking everything. Because, but why can't I do it? Look, man, when I was growing up, video games were going to rot your brain. Some 14-year-old won $3 million last year playing Fortnite or something like that.
Yes.
Like, so again, parents, I'm not telling you to go pursue that like we pursue hockey as hockey parents. But my point to you is like, we don't know what's coming in 20 years. Cultivate your kid's ability to have a passion. Cultivate that because one, in this country, you can do that. That's something true. You can't do that everywhere.
Yes.
All right. And number two is that I can equate it to hockey. Mike, you can speak to this. The best players on the ice are not always the most talented. They're creative. You have to have a level of talent. Don't get me wrong. But we encourage creativity on the ice. Like you think when Sidney Crosby or even Carter Hart, for this example, go on the ice that they're doing exactly everything the coach told them to do? No, the great coach you don't tell Sidney Crosby what to do. He does it because he's creative. Right? So where do you think that comes from?
I totally agree.
People telling him not to shoot the puck as a kid. Right? His dad could have told him, and mom, don't shoot the puck into the washing machine. Don't do that.
Well, any of those pursuits, whether it's hockey, being a doctor, being an artist,
right?
It's all about passion. Find your passion, and then maybe you're going to be a struggling art. Listen, I know a lot of struggling artists, right? And they're great. They're great art. I mean, I'm like, how do you do that? Like, how can you do this? It goes, well, I just love doing it.
Right.
But it took me 9 months to do it. But so I didn't get paid because I did it. You know what I mean? Or you see some like graffiti art you see all around the country, and you're like, this is unbelievable stuff. But they're not getting paid for it, right? So they have a passion to do it. So the fact that you're able to meld your passion and a living, and then put those together, and then meet all these great individuals and be inspired by them as well. I mean, it sounds like you're just as inspired by what these great athletes are doing and they look at you in awe, right? They look at you and say, how the hell are you like, how'd you get my head to put it on the mask? Like, how'd you get that out of me? And I think that's that's part of the coolest part about, having a passion for something, because you could be great at what you do, and the person who's great at what they do can appreciate the same.
100%. That's so true, because you have to be inspired by people, right? So, who inspires you, and I think art in general, like music, comedy, a lot of things, they have a bad rep, right? How are you going to make a living doing that? How are you going to, the starving artist syndrome, the kid picks up a guitar, is he going to be the next, Jimi Hendrix? We don't know that. But if you inspire him and you push him and you get him lessons, and you never know, he could be the next Eric Clapton. But if he doesn't have a shot, right, then how would he ever know?
Yeah.
And to do it, he might be so good that he might be able to do it on the side and still have a full-time job. I had to do that for a little bit too, just to create my own business. We've been in business 24 years next year. And I feel that in this world, that's saying something, what lasts that long. And especially in art, I got to create, if I wasn't painting hockey masks, because it was seasonal, I would paint motorcycles. I would paint whatever I could, murals, to keep my art and my love, and still be able to make a living at it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that, like my father was in Korea, right? And he was in the the ammunition department, and he wasn't getting paid to be an artist, but he painted all the bombs, and he painted all the planes, and he painted all these iconic drawings on, because everybody else was like, do this, I have this idea, do this, and he would but it gave, that was his passion, right? He didn't want to make a living being in an ammunition depot in Korea, but he found his passion within what he was doing. And like what you're saying, you were allowed to explore that and blossom in that environment, which is really, really pretty cool. And I think it sounds like no matter what you would have pursued, you would have been successful at it. So it's great that you found something that you're not only good at, but you love doing, which is great. Well,
thank you. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, if you can take two of them and combine them, right? Then you're living, the dream, right? Like I've always wanted to play hockey and be a hockey goaltender. And I've had people push me and do whatever to become that, but I'm short, so I would have never made it. Goaltenders now are like 10 feet tall. I'm only 5'5" or 5'4". If I'm saying 5'5", I wish I was 5'5". You look at guys like Briz and Tuca and those guys that you get to paint for. They're tall goalies now. And as a kid, I've always wanted to draw things. And I always tell kids, please just draw what you love. If you love hockey, draw hockey players. If you like cartoons or SpongeBob, draw SpongeBob. Because when you're drawing it, like you said, with the fish, he had to be inspired by it. He had to be inspired to go out there and look at the lake. And then when he comes back in, he's got a clear mind to do that. And I always said, I'm not that kind of artist. Like, I just tell me what you want and I'll paint it. But all artists are a little odd and a little weird, because we all have to have, we all have to have, we all have to have some kind of inspiration somewhere, right?
Yeah. Like Fran, I'm going to tap on this again, is that the love for it is really the key. And again, like you said this before, you don't have to be Eric Clapton. You don't have to be Patrick Waugh. If your kid loves something, like really, truly loves it, cultivate the love and give them guidance, give them passion. At the same time, we say this, I always hated, and I mean hate, I hate when parents tell their kid, you're never going to make the NHL. Like, don't worry about that. You're never going to make the, even if it's joking, don't tell your kid that. I hated that growing up. I still hate it as a coach, right? If you're thinking that, I get that, but don't say that. Just say, yeah, hey, if you work really hard, who knows what's going to happen? If you love it enough, it's going to happen, right?
Yep.
I'm in a position. I love hockey. I loved every minute playing hockey my entire life. I loved broadcasting. Happen to be doing a hockey show as a broadcaster right now, and then these two people on the show with you, my mentors, Christy got into television as an anchor when that wasn't the most popular thing for a woman to do. She's a trailblazer. She asked, why not? Why can't I? Right? Mike is a level 5 hockey. The guy legit lives hockey all the time.
Yep.
Right. Why can't he do that? And look at you.
There's two people that are inspirational, right? So people, see what they've accomplished, and, the young girls watching her and seeing her on TV and doing all that, they're looking and they're getting inspired. I can do that also. And, as far as hockey in general, it's just one thing, right? Like if you want to be a hockey player like my son doesn't even play hockey. He loves basketball and football. So I push him towards whatever he wants to do, because we go out and we practice. I don't know anything about basketball, right? Like I'm short. So, but I practice drills with him. I look online, we do things. So this way, he might never be an NBA guy, but I'm going to let him live his dream. Right. Like you said, let them live their dream.
It's the best part of growing up.
Follow them along the way, because like my dad and my mom did the same thing with me. My mom always pushed me. She's like, just keep drawing, keep drawing. And I never got to meet my grandfather. He loved to draw too, but I would love to sit down and just talk to him, and say, hey, what made you love drawing? I deal with artists across the United States, even in Canada. Some of my best friends are mask painters, and we have a lot of respect for each other. And I'm sure you'll if you interview another mask painter, we just love each other's work. If a goalie comes here, I always, and there's someone else's paint or someone else painted for them, I always call and give them respect of saying, hey, they just came to Philly. They're your guy. Is that cool if we paint for them? It's a love and respect for them. That's awesome. Because they do the same thing for us. And we all are just trying to make a living, doing what we love to do.
I love that. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw it to my two co-hosts here to see if they have anything else to say. You've been an awesome guest today. Yeah.
This is so fun. I can't believe our conversation is over. It feels like it just started. Thank you so much. I've learned so much, and you're very inspirational too.
Thank you.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to set up, classes here now for kids. We're going to do free art classes at our shop. Awesome. For young kids that want to learn how to paint and draw. Because I remember back in the day when we didn't have the internets and the social medias and the Instagrams and all that other fun stuff that we have now. Because you can look up Google and find anything you want, or, how to do on YouTube. But I never had that, and I would look through a magazine real quick, and I'm like, oh man, I got this airbrush magazine, and the guy's showing us how to do it. And now that I know how to paint, he skipped like 30 steps because he wasn't showing you everything that he knows. And I don't want to do that. I want to show these kids to become the next goalie painter, or to just show them my love for what I never got to be taught. I went to art school, but I never as a kid got to do what I'm doing now, and learn. So you got to give back.
Totally. Well, I was going to say, Franny, too, and Mike, if you have anything after this, jump in. But where can people find you? What social media? Or you said the internet, the social medias. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
We're on Instagram at Paint Zoo. I'm not so bad at all this stuff. We're on Facebook at Paint Zoo. So basically Paint Zoo everywhere. You can find us on those two outlets right there. That's pretty much what I have. I have Twitter, but I really don't know how to use it. So I'm not good at the social media.
No worries at all. We'll link it. With everything you said, we'll link it.
Thank you.
Mike, any final thoughts, brother?
No, I love it. I mean, I think it's like I grew up with an artist that did commercial art, like Michelin Man and the Quick Bunny, and it's funny, when my father was doing the Quick Bunny all these years, I remember like he always tried to incorporate a lot of hockey into it because he was a hockey guy, so you kind of found his little passion in there. But I mean, I just love your story and love how you're inspiring all these young kids. But I also love hearing and now getting the opportunity to watch your goaltenders perform and watching them evolve in their mask and what their story is. And it's really just a really cool, cool aspect of another piece of hockey that a lot of us, don't get to see in the background, which is great.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, young goalies are really what we, like you say, you coach and you've been in the game a long, long time, and you get to see, you get to develop these kids, and for me, that's my goal, I guess, in art. If you don't want to paint a hockey mask, paint a wall. Paint something. Paint a canvas. I don't care. Just let let everything out. Your talents out. Because these kids need outlets. They really do. Whether it's hockey, I always had hockey, but it was so expensive to be on the ice. So I played roller hockey and street hockey, and until I was able to play ice hockey. And art is you get some pencils and you draw. Right? It's not super expensive, so you can really outlet yourself out. Really, you can just be. I just want to be inspirational towards these kids, because I have kids and we all have kids, and it's like, I'm tired of looking at my kid and he's playing on TikTok, and I'm going, what are we doing here, dude? Like, let's go outside and play some basketball or do something, like, let's do something that really is, athletic or doing something,
Well, you said you wanted to be an inspiration. You are an inspiration. This was a very inspirational episode today. And Franny, we really appreciate you giving the time today. This was a really fun interview. Again, we never know what we're going to get into with some of these interviews, and yours was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I really do. Caitlin kind of told me about it, and I was like, man, it'd be really great, because, that's really my goal, like as a kid, showing these younger generation, what you do. That's why we try to teach as much as we can, because maybe one day they'll be able to do the same thing.
Well, that is the goal. And no, you've been awesome, man. And we hope you found a lot of inspiration in this episode, as we did here as well. This is going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias. That's Christy Casciano Burns and Mike Benelli. And for Franny Drummond, thanks so much for listening. Remember, you can find this on ourkidsplayhockey.com. We'll link all of Franny's information there if you're looking for some links. Or you can listen to the episode wherever podcasts can be heard. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody.